The office air was heavy, buzzing with a drone of fluorescent lights and the faint bitterness of stale coffee drifting from a break room. My pulse raced when Mr. Callahan's hand brushed my knee. Just a fleeting touch, but deliberate enough to send a chill through me. I stiffened, fingers clutching the edge of the conference table, its polished surface cold against my damp palms. His sharp gaze flicked toward me, a hint of a smile tugging at his mouth before he turned back to the quarterly reports. My stomach twisted. Was it an accident? I wanted to believe so, to dismiss it as clumsy coincidence. But the way his eyes had lingered on me earlier, the two long glances at my blouse, whispered otherwise. I shifted in my chair, tugging at my skirt, trying to rationalize. He was my boss, a man whose charm often walked a fine line between flattering and unsettling. Compliments that felt oddly personal. Emails sent near midnight about work that could have waited until daylight. But he had a wife, and I had David. The gold ring on my finger shimmered under the office light, a silent reminder of my husband's steady presence at home. I swallowed the unease, convincing myself I was imagining things. The meeting crawled on, charts and numbers blurring, as I replayed that smile, that touch. When I finally left, the city was cloaked in twilight, street lamps blinking awake like timid stars. My heels struck the pavement in rhythm with my racing thoughts. I want to call David, to let his voice anchor me, but the phone stayed untouched in my purse. How could I even say it? That my boss's hand grazed my leg, and I wasn't sure what it meant. It sounded absurd, petty, yet the memory clung to me like damp fabric. At home, David was at the stove, stirring pasta in a fragrant haze of garlic and basil. His grin lit up the room, his eyes crinkling in that way that still made my heart skip after 7 years. "Rough day?" he asked lightly, though his tone searched deeper. I forced a smile, setting the table with shaky hands, hiding behind the clatter of plates. Dinner drifted by in harmless chatter. His impossible client, the dog's latest mischief, his socks destroyed again. I laughed on cue, but my mind was elsewhere, dissecting every lingering look from Callahan. Every comment I brushed off as harmless. That night, I lay awake beside David, his steady breathing so different from the chaos in my head. The shadows stretched sharp across the ceiling as I replayed the conference room moment, questioning myself. Had I misread it? Was I twisting an innocent gesture into something sinister? But then I remembered the late-night email, 11:43 p.m., asking me to stay for a special project. I had dismissed it, but now doubt gnawed at me. The next morning, Callahan called me into his office. The door clicked shut, sealing us in. Papers littered his desk, but his eyes stayed fixed on me. "Emma, your work has been outstanding," he said smoothly. "I've been thinking of you for that promotion." My heart lifted until his next words crashed down. It would mean working very closely together. Too closely. His smile stretched wide, suggestive. The air thickened until I could barely breathe. I muttered a weak thanks and fled, legs trembling as I returned to my desk. The hum of phones and keyboards around me felt distant, as though I were drowning. This wasn't imagination. This was real. A line had been crossed. That evening, I couldn't hide it anymore. David noticed the moment I stepped inside, pale and restless. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice gentle but urgent. I pulled away from his hand, afraid I'd shatter if I let him hold me. The words spilled out, broken, tangled, about Callahan. The touch of the late emails, the promotion laced with conditions I hadn't agreed to. David's face hardened, his jaw tight, but he stayed silent, listening. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. "I'll kill him." Tears stung my eyes. "No, it's not that simple," I whispered. I tried to convince myself I might be overreacting, but deep down we both knew I wasn't. The betrayal wasn't just his touch. It was a destruction of the safety I thought I had at work. David pulled me into his arms, and I broke, the weight of it crashing down. The next day, I entered the office determined to protect myself, to confront Callahan and draw boundaries. But my steps faltered when I spotted David's car in the lot. My stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to be here. I hurried inside and found him in the hallway, his fury barely contained. Callahan stood there too, his charm slipping into unease as David closed in. "She told me everything," David said, his voice steady but venomous. "You think you can touch my wife and get away with it?" The office hushed, curious eyes turning. Callahan stammered, his polished mask cracking. I wanted to stop it, to intervene, but I was frozen. Then his face hardened and his words cut like a blade. "She didn't seem to mind." The accusation twisted the air, making me feel stripped bare. Colleagues' eyes shifted toward me, some skeptical, some judging. My chest tightened as my integrity was questioned in an instant. David looked at me, searching, and for a brief, gut-wrenching moment, I saw doubt flicker in his eyes, not in me, but in us, in everything we had built. I stepped forward, my voice trembling but clear. "You're lying," I said, reclaiming my truth. "I never asked for this. I never wanted it." The silence deepened, the room waiting. And in that moment, I realized the betrayal wasn't just his violation, nor the whispers around me. It was how easily doubt could seep into even the strongest bond. David's hand found mine, his grip firm, grounding. We would face the storm together. But I knew the scars would remain.